In this video, we're going to be talking about hormones and the hormones that particularly contribute to weight gain and why this happens in the menopause. Okay, so please say hello when you're watching. Give me a little emoji so Facebook thinks it's worthwhile content for my audience and sends it out, pushes it out to more people in our community. So once you jump on here, if you can give me a little emoji, that would be wonderful. All right, so before we just let Facebook do its thing and let people know that I'm live, I wanted to share with you one little tip that I use in the first hint of a sniffle, a cold, or a scratchy throat. Now, yesterday was a very emotional day for me. I dropped my mother-in-law into Gloucester Royal for her big bowel operation, and it was a very early start. I got very little sleep the night before. I'm terrible. If I have to set an alarm, I will wake up 5 times in the night to check whether it's the time for the alarm to go off. And I normally wake up really, really early and pardon me, wake up really, really early anyway, but I would have been wide awake by 5 o'clock in the morning, no problem. But we had to be in the hospital really, really early, so I didn't get a lot of sleep. And then I was quite emotional when I came out of the hospital because there was a picket line with the nurse, and I was firstly so grateful when we got received by the nurses in the surgery ward. I thought, yes, it's going ahead. So that was really emotional. And then, yeah, so I just feel like I'm a little bit under the weather today. So I want to share with you the thing that I do for when I am under the weather to nip it in the butt. I make a rollerball with a combination of essential oils, and I put On Guard, eucalyptus, lemon, oregano, tea tree, and frankincense, and I'll be rubbing that throughout the day under my earlobes, on the front of my throat. And as we're talking about hormones, definitely the thyroid needs support. When I get a little bit frazzled or emotional or a little bit depleted and tired, I know that my thyroid needs that extra support, and I can feel that sort of inflammation, that little bit of stuff going on there today. So that's what I do. These oils are from doTERRA. I do stock them on my website, so if you are interested, I do also make these up for my clients. I make bespoke rollerballs. All right, let's get on and talk about hormones and weight gain and why it is that during the menopause particularly you're prone to putting on weight, which is really interesting because the body is doing exactly what it should. And we have, you will store fat under the arms, on the back, and on the belly, because what's happening with that dip in estrogen, the body is storing fat because it can derive estrogen from those fat stores. All right, so can be life-saving, can be game-changing that we've got these estrogen stores to keep us fit and healthy during the menopause. All right, and estrogen, not only is it a sex hormone, but it's also really important for cardiovascular health, for your cognitive function, that ability to function in the brain, and also for your bone density, and so your heart health, your immune health, your bone density, your muscle density, and your brain function. So estrogen is playing a really important part. And of course, when we have less estrogen, the body's going to store fat in order to derive that estrogen from the fat cell. Now, don't be fooled. Menobelly is not a scientific term. It is a marketing term, and it is derived from to prey on women's insecurities as their bodies change in midlife. So that change in your body shape and in midlife is very normal. It's okay. But of course, when we feel uncomfortable about that weight gain that has happened, like we've become accidentally overweight at this midlife stage of our life, we can feel that, we don't feel that happy about it. Anyway, so what happens, if we have stress, we have thyroid challenges, and we have congested liver, this can definitely impact and cause a greater amount of weight gain around the belly. So we have this adipose tissue around the belly that is can be a sign of toxicity. It can be a sign that the adrenals and the thyroid needs a little bit of extra support, and it can be that the liver needs a little bit of extra support. And it can be also that it's purely your hormones. So let's talk about, we like to talk about the nasty four hormones, but the thyroid, the sex hormones, insulin, the fat storing hormone, and cortisol, the stress hormone. But also think about testosterone. So you may have too high or too low testosterone, which can impact on your weight and also your libido. And your testosterone is that hormone that gives you that get up and go. So if you're struggling with low motivation, it may be that you are very low in testosterone. And of course, estrogen is reduced during the menopause. And low estrogen can cause low libido, vaginal dryness, aging, like that elasticity of the skin tends to disappear overnight, and it can cause stubborn weight problems and cravings. Leptin is a really interesting hormone that you may be deficient in as well. The more fat you have, the less hungry you should feel, because your body can derive energy from the calories that's stored in the fat. But we may be out of practice in supporting the body to use those calories. So when we have insulin in the bloodstream, this is the fat storing hormones that's giving the body the message to store fat and use that fat. So leptin is part of that fat regulation system. However, when it is out of balance, the body becomes almost deaf to hearing that stop eating signal. All right, so if you're low in leptin, you may have this persistent hunger. All right, T3 and T4 are the thyroid hormones. They're the most active thyroid hormone, and they can be causing hidden metabolism issues, so unexpected or unexplained stubborn weight, and tiredness and constipation could be that you're very low in T3. And T4 is the main thyroid hormone, and too little of this means that every cell in the body will run a little bit slower, which then slows down the metabolism, and this can cause weight gain and constipation and that extreme tiredness. Okay, so let's have a think about why in the menopause you gain weight. And firstly, it's because your metabolism does slow down. You may have less of the T4 available, and your metabolism does become a little bit sluggish. So believe it or not, we do need less food as we age, and sometimes that will happen quite naturally, but it's in that menopause with the change of the hormones that you may be feeling really, really hungry all the time and you just can't satisfy that hunger. Your muscle mass does reduce, so doing weight training is very good at this phase in our lives to help support that continued muscle development rather than muscle loss. Naturally, we're going to have more stress hormones in our menopause. If you're anything like me, I've got 2 young boys and I have aging parents, aging mother-in-law, and it's like we're being stretched a little bit thin. Running businesses, having a career, caring for aging parents, and still having children at home can lead us to feel a little bit depleted and a little bit more stressed. And also maybe your motivation is on the floor. And I can help with all of these things. I can help with supporting your thyroid and your metabolism. I can help definitely with your stress and lifestyle. I can definitely help with your motivation and, ways to eat better for your hormones to support, a healthy weight. All right. Now, if you are struggling particularly with bingo wings, where you're getting that excess weight around the bottom of the arms, you could be doing some resistant training to develop more muscle there to help with the insulin resistance, that insulin sensitivity. So the more sensitive you are to insulin, the more likely you are to be able to burn fat. So bicep curls, pushing weights, doing push-ups, that sort of thing can really help. If you're struggling with that meno belly, with that, weight gain at the front of the belly, then this is definitely where estrogen deposits fat. Normally, prior to the perimenopause, estrogen will deposit fat on the hips, and then we have this, the deposition of the fat changes, and it becomes more about the belly weight. So really important strategy for meno belly is to de-stress. Chronic stress is associated with abdominal fat and, more higher insulin, which then turns into calories, which means more belly fat. So really focusing on your stress, whether it's through Tai Chi, breath work, yoga, walking, really, really good. Now, if you're struggling with back fat, then this is this declining estrogen and increase in stress hormones, increase in the cortisol, and the body will just store fat wherever it can, and the back is a really good place to be storing fat. So doing some resistant training, getting that into your week, getting that into your workouts can be really useful. And fast walking. So fast walking for an hour every day or maybe 5 times a week can be really beneficial for reducing that back fat. We're seeing some really good results. We are into week 5 of the Total Body Transformation Challenge, and we're seeing some really good results on those measurements across the back, the breast, the waist, especially that hip to waist ratio. You do not want the waist to hip ratio to be greater. You want the slight indent in the waist, and that's really healthy. If you've got that waist to hip ratio where it's inverted, then that can cause trouble later in life with that visceral fat around the organs, and we don't want that. So my best strategies for managing the hormone weight gain is to reduce your stress, increase your weight training, your resistant training, and also consider eating very differently. So we can do time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, where we are delaying that the first eating window of the day to somewhere around maybe 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and you may find that will help stimulate metabolism, and you don't feel as hungry in the afternoon. So you can play around with that time eating window and start to gradually reduce that. So you might get it down to 8 hours or 6 hours or even 5 hours. Seems to work really well for people where they're not craving outside of that eating window. They have a longer non-eating window, and during that time you're just having water, black tea, black coffee, and you are, that helps to manage your hunger. Believe it or not, the less you eat outside of that non-eating window, the less likely you are to overeat and crave in the eating window. So that's an interesting strategy. Sorry, I'm really starting to get a bit bunged up. Anyway, there we go. You can also eat well for your hormones. You can, pardon me, you can make sure you're focusing on good, healthy amount of fat at each meal, like the size of a 50p piece. Making sure you're getting enough protein at each meal, the size of your palm, and 2 good fists of colourful, vibrant, nutrient-dense leaves and vegetables. All right, and you're eating like that with good omegas and good healthy fats like avocados, coconut, flesh, good healthy, good lovely fatty fish. Getting you good omegas can be really, really important. You may find that green tea, the active ingredient in green tea, pardon me, is L-theanine, and that is very, very good for managing your stress, managing your cortisol levels, and helping with your metabolism and your thyroid. And foods that are high in vitamin C, so your lemons, your limes, your oranges. I'm not a big fan of oranges, I don't really agree with me, but Lemons, limes, grapefruit, really, really good. Red bell peppers, very, very good. The foods that are high in antioxidants, so lots of colour. Now, we do have a new product available which has a combination of what was in the Protein Fix and the Protein Max, and you would have heard me talk about that before. It's called Organic Protein Beta G. Now, what this is really good for is it's got the beta glucans from organic gluten-free oats, but it's also got maca, which is really good for the hormones, sea buckthorn oil, which is very good for the gut lining, camu, very high in vitamin C, so you're getting that thyroid support, you're getting that stress support, and the organic mushrooms. So it's got all the medicinal mushrooms, reishi, chaga, shiitake, maitake, lion's mane, cordyceps, and tremala. And these are very good for thyroid support, very good for reducing the cortisol, helpful for the metabolism, very good for the gut support. So this is an interesting combination which is very beneficial for stimulating the glucagon, which is the fat burning pancreatic hormone, which results in more energy and stamina. It also helps to manage the blood sugar, so really good for anyone who's thinking they might be pre-diabetic or has high cholesterol. It can be very, very good for those. Also amazing for the skin and the hair. So, sometimes, especially in the menopause, we can start to have hair that's thinning, hair that's falling out, and skin that becomes less elastic. So every serving of this has 9 grams of fiber, and this is particularly really good for increasing that fecal bulk and allowing the proper peristalsis of your intestines, which helps with lots of different bowel issues as well. So it's really incredible for tissue repair and very good for rebuilding, amazing for repair from injuries, and it's a natural sugar release, so it really helps with feeling fuller for longer. So if you would like that, it is available on my website now. And if you have already tried it and you would like to refer a friend, guess what? I can give you a 5% discount. And for every friend that you refer, I will increase that. So 5%, 10%, 15% if you refer 3 friends to try this, particularly for blood sugar balance, for weight in the menopause, for that energy, for that stamina, and particularly if you're struggling with high cholesterol. Let me know if you're referring people and I can send you a discount code. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're watching on replay, please let me know. I would love to know that you are watching and that this is helpful. And if you are struggling with accidental weight gain and you're feeling tired and sluggish and really low motivation, then please reach out to me, because this is what I'm really good at. I help with keeping you accountable. I help with balancing the hormones. I help to identify what your hormones are doing. So testing your hormones in a Dutch test, which is a dried urine saliva test, is really a great way to see what your hormones are doing. And then when we know what your hormones are doing, we know what we need to tweak, what foods, what lifestyle, what supplements we need to add in to help you feel more balanced. And then, you start to be motivated and held accountable to losing a bit of weight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.